Good morning. I'm here to talk to you about XOXO. I got back yesterday and it was quite a weekend. I have been putting off writing or blogging about it because so much happened that I wanted to have a bunch of time to absorb it all and kind of find a place for it in my brain before I started talking about it. But I'm going to attempt to do it now and tell you why XOXO was an amazing time for me. What is XOXO? XOXO Fest is an experimental conference that takes place in Portland, Oregon every year. It has been described as the most interesting weekend in tech, and while being a very software engineering conference, it is also a place for artists. So it's almost a combination of very creative, handcrafty people, along with just a lot of web developers, programmers, and the like. It is described as an event for people who live and work online. I attended because last year I noticed that some of the people I like a lot on Twitter all went. They changed their Twitter usernames to say I'm at XOXO, and I looked it up. I wanted to know what it was. I realized that a lot of people that I follow and admire have either spoken or attended XOXO. So this year, when I saw on Twitter that they were taking applications, I didn't hesitate. I entered into the lottery because they have a lottery system for distributing tickets, and I was lucky enough to get a ticket. I attended because I work on the forefront of the future of work. I study people who live and work online. Some of them are my partner Cheyenne and some others that I interview on my podcast. And the hope is to figure out how these people make it work in order to help myself get my way into working remotely, working online, and doing something really innovative and meaningful. Got my ticket, took the bus down to Portland, Oregon. So I printed out a bunch of new business cards that actually had my Instagram handle and website on them, and went down to Portland, Oregon to stay with my friends Melissa and Josh. First day, registered, got my badge. It's very official because it has my podcast on it. Inside has all of the events that were happening. Yeah, registration day was exciting because I got my t-shirt, swag, notebooks. Then I went home to nap. First day was a social day, so there were an assortment of meetups that were going on various topics. I went to 4 of them. First one was a Patreon meetup for people who are interested in discussing Patreon, whether they were patrons or people who create content. There was a representative from Patreon there, and I thought it was really cool to see people who had very specific questions about strategy and using the platforms. That's why I was there. Next up, I went to the Glitch Appy Hour. Appy for application. Glitch is a online platform for making web apps. It was essentially an open house and a bit of a show and tell. People showed off some of the projects that they make, and the funny thing is that the projects are almost cooler the more useless they are, which is kind of their whole deal. They're like, hey, make a bunch of really fun, dumb stuff, which for some reason feels so refreshing, especially in the tech sphere. One of my favorites was a particular person who generated quilt patterns with their Glitch app and then actually crocheted it together in real life. After the Appy Hour, I went to a bot meetup, Twitter bot meetup, which was one of my favorites because the specific kind of personality I found that makes bots is just very kind of technical minded while also being creative. And you get a very interesting person as a result. Representatives from BotWiki were there, and BotWiki is a project that kind of documents and categorizes interesting bots on the internet, which was also wild to hear about and share information regarding. Lastly, I went to the Oregon Volunteer Lawyers Association? Mouthful. can't get it out. Basically, it's volunteer lawyers who are happy to sit and give legal advice to any artists. I guess it's not technically legal advice. They're there to talk and to resource share. And I learned that for my business ventures, I need to register an LLC very soon. I'm probably gonna do that before the year is out. Learned a little bit about copyright law, which was really interesting. One of the main things it kept asking was like, for a small creator, is it worth it to pursue copyright claims? And the answer is yes. When your art is clearly being stolen and resold, you have a case. Again, I'm not giving legal advice, we were just chatting. As you can see, like this was just the stuff I went to. There were so many meetups that I couldn't go to all of them and I probably wouldn't want to. But it was a specific overlap between creativity and the more technical side of working on the internet and being surrounded by other people who also were interested in the same thing. That I think was one of the most valuable parts for me. I know that a lot of the time, like even describing XOXO to my acquaintances is kind of hard because they don't get it. And then going to this conference, you're surrounded by people who get it. I pitched my business model and people were like, wow, that's really creative and viable and it must be super fun. And it was, they understood. Whereas, bless them, like talking to my parents, they're like, so what exactly do you do? The next 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, were the conference days where there was a series of speakers lined up to talk about what they do on the internet. This, I could go into detail, but the videos will also be live later, like this year or something, and you will be able to see them for yourself. I think that the speakers are more than capable of communicating what they did, honestly, better than I could possibly. There were so many people who got viral and didn't plan, expect to, or even want to. So many of the people that had moments on the internet said, I didn't ask for this, and honestly, sometimes it kind of sucks. And the strategies and the thing that stayed with me is how these people chose to handle their sudden power with grace. And I think that was really interesting and important because it showed how the internet provides these opportunities that no one's really ready for, but sometimes you get that opportunity and you're flabbergasted. What on earth am I supposed to do now that millions of people are watching me? I recommend just looking through the lineup yourself. There's things that you might be interested in. If you go to xoxofest.com/2019/schedule, you can see all of this. I walked away from the conference feeling this clarity because there were people who were doing projects that meant something to them. And a lot of the times it had it had less to do about money and more about the mission. And seeing these people like fighting the good fight in terms of bringing attention and eyes to like causes that matter because you have a worldwide platform to do that just made me feel good about the work that I do and the work that is being done online, especially in this very insular community. One of the first people I talked to we bonded over how much we liked Vine and whether or not we should migrate to TikTok and and the community. What's funny?
I don't know why that just brings me so much joy. TikTok is the new frontier.
Right, and that's what we were talking about. And who else am I gonna be able to talk to about this?
Besides teens.
Right.
People that attend XOXO.
Exactly. This person also just makes a ton of art out of reclaimed wood. I'll show you one of them. There it is. This is, it's wood, and it's by Mike Bennett. Mike Bennett Art. We just mutually inspired each other to continue doing our podcasting and maybe go to TikTok and try to make the best of it. Another person that I talked to, this blew my mind. There was a time I worked a job where I had to sit for long periods of time in Portland, Oregon and like look like I was busy. And so I went to a lot of weird websites, one of which is isitsnowinginpdx.com. I'm gonna make sure that URL is correct. So if you go during most of the time, this is what it says. But when it is snowing, the screen turns red and there's a Kermit the Frog that's dancing around and it says commence panic, which is kind of how Portland responds to snow. The creator of this website is named Max, and I went to their website just to check them out, and they were at XOXO Fest. And I was able to talk to Max. Max is a really cool individual. It's this kind of niche shit of finding people who have made something bizarre online, and then they're there. What other conversations did I have? I think I was just taken aback by the density of people doing interesting things online. And I know that the more we're alive, we find our little bubbles. Like, my bubble now is in Seattle, where I meet with my friends. A lot of them are computery people who kind of know what XOXO is. But also, from day to day, I meet people who are not as technically savvy. Or I'll talk to my parents, and they're so confused as to what my life is like. And I'm always trying to build the bridge and explain to them, hey, like, people make money knitting on Twitch. That's the thing that I kind of help people understand. Being at XOXO was a community of folks who already understand that, and they're thinking about the next step. And they wanted to work with me on developing whatever that next step is. Being surrounded by such a creative group of people who are all on the same page made me like feel more legitimate, and made me feel less like off base or confused, because suddenly I wasn't having to explain myself all the time. I was in a room of people who understood and got it, and thought that my work was meaningful. And this is from the people that I've already admired. I'm reiterating this in many different ways, but the way I described it to Cheyenne when I texted her, I was like, imagine being in a room full of some of the most creative and smart people you've ever met, and then pitching your idea to them and them telling you that it sounds exciting and valid. That's incredible, and it bolsters me to like legitimize my business top to bottom as far as doing the orbit and all my other internet stuff, because the people that understand what I'm doing told me in person that it was important and meaningful and awesome. I made a lot of friends. There was a lot of following on Twitter, I think, is the best way. Business cards, yeah, they were helpful, but I knew that like if I wanted to definitely connect with this person, I would just add them on Twitter or Instagram. So I'm following a handful of new people. Some of them are following me, and I just know a lot more resources that I can use if I get stuck, or if I have questions, or if I want to do something particularly creative. I know who to look to for inspiration, and it's the people that were lined up to talk at the conference, it's the people that I was able to talk to in person, and it's for previous XOs and future XOXOs. I'll be able to kind of tap in and see what this community is thinking about. I hope I did a good job at kind of describing what it did for me. Hopefully I answered a couple questions, but I just wanted to get it down because I came back and all of my journal entries say like 2020, get it together, Connor. You're gonna, you're legitimate, you know what you're doing, and it's gonna be wild. So please keep in touch, and this is not the last you'll hear about me or my ventures. And now, speaking of which, I'm gonna go work with some clients.